here.
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite turtle who leads, favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the NECA 1/4 scale Leonardo. A lot of drama for this for me. Like I'm done ordering from Entertainment Earth. Like they don't tell you when they're sold out. So like I pre-ordered this and they already had sold out their initial shipment, so I had to wait for their second shipment. This is the second time it happened to have a Raphael also, so I'm done with them. But let's not harbor on the bad. Let's stay on the good, which is this figure in terms of comparing it to the other two. So let's just continue and look at this. Mostly the same stuff here, so nothing really crazy to talk about, but we'll just fly through it. So it comes with an assortment of hands. He has two holding hands in his hand, but then he has two additional holding hands for left and right. It kind of changes the angle of the sword. And then he has a relaxed hand for the right and a kind of relaxed hand for the left, but it can also hold, if you give me a second, his mutagen canister, which does open, and then he has, and I guess it could also theoretically hold the slice of pizza, but we'll talk about both of those in a second. And then he has a pointing hand, which I do like, and I think I'll probably end up using ultimately, and then another relaxed hand for the same hand, which is a little strange to me, but I guess you could put the pizza in that as well. You kind of jam it in there, so to speak. Yeah, no problem. So a couple different options, but all kind of perform similar tasks with a few exceptions. And then he has the slice of pizza done similarly. You got the brown plastic with the red wash on top, and then the cheese and toppings are all sculpted on and painted, and they're painted extremely well. It looks great, and then it's dry brushed underneath to kind of give that cooked feeling. And then we have the mutagen canister. It's got a silver finish on it, and then it's got the red and black paint, and then the radioactive material painted on, and the symbol painted on, as well as the branding. So all that works well, and it does open up. So cool. Of course, he has to come with his signature katanas. They look great. They look dirty, which I dig. I wouldn't have necessarily thought they would have looked dirty, but I like it. I think it makes it more believable, you know, living down in the sewers. Not a lot of reflective surfaces down there, but that's a Batman Returns reference. They're stylized the same in the sense of they're a silver finish, and then we have the brown with some dry brushing down here, and then the wrap around. There's a lot of attention to detail with this that I will ultimately be appreciative of. The little buttons and stuff are all sculpted and painted. So yeah, pretty good. Of course, he can use them. He can hold them both in the hands that come stock on the figure and the additional holding hands, so no problems there. And of course, they can be utilized on his back sheaths or scabbards. You can have them go each way. Like the more traditional way has them sit a little towards that end, and then you can have them go this way, which has them sit more towards the other end. You know, I guess it doesn't really hurt them either way. It kind of depends on where you like the angle coming out. Of course, with figures this size, I like to go through it kind of piece by piece. It's the same sort of thing we've seen before, but it's done well, and we should expect it to be the same. So the whole flesh tone has the scales kind of sculpted in. There is the base color green, and then at least two different shades on top of it. Actually four if you count both browns. And they're all done in little spots and then little shading spots as well throughout. There's also this blue mask, which does have a blue wash on top, and then the eyes are beautiful. I do like this head sculpt a lot because depending on the position, he can look angry or just serious and kind of stoic. So I think that's a really clever choice. I'm not sure if that was their intention, obviously, but I do dig it. The back, the wrap is done right this time, so that's nice, and then it is a soft goods and no problems there. Articulation-wise, limited per usual in a really tight joint, and it is lubricated underneath, so it probably was tighter at some point. Up to about there, down to about there, and then the swivel. Now the whole turtle has it's some sort of ball peg. I'm not sure what it is inside of there, but you get a little bit of down, ab crunch kind of, back, and then a little bit of like a waist swivel as well. And once again, the sculpt hides underneath the shell beautifully, so no issues. For his straps, it's the brown plastic, and then it's a dry brush lighter shade of brown on top. And then for the turtle shell, it's this base orange, and then it looks like it could be dry brushing, but it almost looks like airbrushing across the chest here of a darker brown, and then a wash maybe to get inside the crevices, which all looks good. For the shoulders, you have a disc hinge, limited once again, but gets you almost 90 degrees and around, so ultimately okay, and at least what we've come to expect at this point. We also don't have a bicep swivel, but we do have one at the elbow. That should get you what you want. And then I think it's a double jointed elbow, but once again, kind of limited in the range because this stuff kind of gets in the way. Elbow pads are done as they've been done before, which is this brown. It looks like it has one lighter shade of brown dry brushed on it, but not the same shade that's on the strap, so at least there's some variation in there, which is pretty cool. And then same for the wristband. The swivel also is at the forearm, so that should get you any extra additional swivel that you need and should ultimately work out. Once again, the same sort of sculpted details in the muscle tone as well as the vascular nature and so forth, so that all works well. The hands, we can take them out. At least I thought we could. Good grief. I'm going to set this to the side. It's a floating piece, obviously. But you can see how the joint works there if you didn't before when we were talking about them. A swivel here at the peg and then a hinge in out. And this hinge in out for all of them. Same for the other side. We have ratcheted universals. They get you out to there, so not bad. And then forward to about there. So that might even be a little bit more than what we're used to. At least if it's not, it's moving better than it has in the past. Thigh swivel around the universal. I don't like the tolerance on the universal, but I will say it is sturdy. Like, it feels like you're going to break it when you're moving it, but at the same time, the figure feels very solid. We have, I think it's a double jointed knee. Let's see. It might be a single, and you don't get much out of it. That one works a little bit better, maybe 45 degrees. And then the same sort of detailings for the knee pads. And then for the feet, you have an ankle tilt up, an ankle tilt down, and then the slightest bit of a rocker. But you're not going to be putting these guys in any sort of dynamic stances anyway, so it should ultimately work fine. We'll talk about the detailings on the back here. We have 3 different shades of brown. We have the brown for the bandages, which is a darker brown. We have the brown for the base, which is just a heavier dry brush of a lighter brown on top of the darker brown. And then all of the wrap is done in a lighter brown. And it feels secure, like it doesn't feel like it's going to come off or anything, which sometimes is an issue with accessories like this. But it feels good. It's mounted securely. The sculpt is great. All this little stuff is all little independent stuff that's glued on, like for the knots and whatnot. And it does a good job. The shell itself is that base color dark brown, and then it's a heavy, heavy dry brush of a lighter brown. At least that's the way it seems, with perhaps a wash on top. So all in all, the same sort of stylings, detailings, paint, sculpt, etc. that we're used to, except maybe the articulation has improved a bit, but I can't be sure. Size comparison wise, there he is with his 2 brothers, and they look good together. It's nice. It's nice having 3. You know, it seems better than having 2 to me for some reason. I mean, 3 is always better than 2.
More snacks, more snacks, more snacks, more snacks.
Maybe not always. Final thoughts wise is pretty much business as usual. The negatives are that, you know, the articulation does hinder. Like, that's a pretty good pose. And this articulation, I feel like, is better than the previous ones. I feel like it all works a little bit better, but they're on their 3rd one, so they're probably just getting better at it. If you look at his foot, though, you know, that kind of stuff still breaks the suspension of disbelief. So you're not going to be able to get very dynamic poses out of it and make it 100% believable, but I still think that looks pretty good. It's a pretty menacing looking Leo when you get him all armed up and in a good pose. Unfortunately, there's just a few bits of the articulation that make all of that a bit more challenging than it should. Positives wise, the stuff pretty much remains the same. Sculpt is beautiful, the paint is beautiful, the accessories are all still logical. I mean, it is getting a little repetitive with the slice of pizza and the can of ooze, because I think that's pretty much what all of them would come with. But I mean, you know, they still come with the swords and a great number of hands. I could use a little bit more posing hands. Like, I really like the pointing hand option that we saw with the size comparison. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much business as usual. The everything that's good about the other ones is good here. Everything that's bad about the other ones is bad here, with the exception that the headband is done right and the articulation works, I think, a little bit better, but that may be because the engineering is just becoming a smoother process. And that being said, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.